This is truly one of the most incredible stories to come out of World War II. It's a story of courage that is just almost beyond belief, and one that was nearly erased from history. We're going to be talking about the man who volunteered for Auschwitz, Witold Pilecki.
I mean, to stop and think about that question for a second, it almost sounds absurd, right? Auschwitz. It's a place people risked everything, literally everything, to escape from. So who in their right mind would choose to go there?
Well, this is the man who did. This is his actual prisoner photograph from Auschwitz. Just look at that. That's the face of a man on a mission that defies all imagination.
So let's get into it. How, and maybe more importantly, why, did he make this completely unthinkable decision? That's the first part of his story.
This was not an accident. It was a deliberate, calculated choice. In 1940, he intentionally walked into a Warsaw street roundup, allowing himself to be captured by the occupying German forces. And his objective? To infiltrate Auschwitz. And this right here is some really crucial context you need to understand. Back in 1940, the true purpose of Auschwitz was still a mystery to the outside world. The Polish resistance knew it was bad, but they didn't know how bad. So Pilecki's mission was to get inside, gather intelligence, and report back on what was really happening.
So you have to ask yourself, what kind of person undertakes a mission like this? To even begin to understand that, we need to look at who he was long before he ever saw the gates of Auschwitz.
You can see him right there on the far right. Even as a teenager, he was already part of an underground Polish scouting organization, fighting for an independent Poland. So his commitment to his country, it started really early. And his track record as a patriot is just, well, it's remarkable. He fought against the Soviets when he was just a teenager. He commanded a cavalry platoon against the German invasion in 1939. And when Poland fell, did he retreat? Nope. He immediately went underground and co-founded one of the very first resistance groups, the Secret Polish Army.
All right, so that brings us to the absolute heart of his story, his time inside the camp and the mission he was sent there to accomplish.
So on September 22nd, 1940, in a way, Witold Pilecki ceased to exist. He became prisoner number 4859. His name, his past, his rank as an officer, all of it was stripped away and replaced with just a number.
But here's the thing. Once he was inside, he didn't just observe, he acted. He created an entire underground military organization called the Związek Organizacji Wojskowej, or ZOV. And its goals were just astounding. Everything from simply keeping hope alive and smuggling in extra food, to the most critical tasks, creating a network to get intelligence out and even preparing for a potential uprising inside the camp.
Think about that. For nearly 2.5 years, that's 947 days, Pilecki's smuggled messages were the first and the primary detailed accounts of the gas chambers, the systematic starvation, the true horror of what was unfolding at Auschwitz. His reports were the main source of intelligence for the Allies. Invaluable stuff.
By 1943, things were getting incredibly dangerous. The Camp Gestapo, the secret police operating inside Auschwitz, was closing in on his network. So his mission changed. On a single night, he and two comrades overpowered a guard at a bakery just outside the main camp. They cut the phone lines and they ran. He knew he had to get out to personally convince the home army to try and liberate the camp.
You'd think escaping Auschwitz would be the end of the story, right? A hero's triumphant return? Well, it wasn't. Not even close. This brings us to the truly tragic next chapter of his life, because surviving one totalitarian regime was not the end of his fight.
I mean, after escaping Auschwitz, the guy didn't even take a break. He went on to fight in the brutal 1944 Warsaw Uprising, was captured again by the Germans, and then after the war's end, he immediately took on a new mission, to return to Poland and report on its takeover by another totalitarian power, the Soviet Union.
It's just, the stark reality of his life is unbelievable, really. He spent years fighting Nazi Germany, putting himself through hell, only to come home and find his country occupied by a new enemy. He just continued his fight for a free Poland, this time against the Soviet-backed communist regime. In this final fight, it would cost him absolutely everything. In 1947, he was arrested by the communist secret police. He was brutally tortured, but revealed nothing. This photo you're seeing is from his show trial in 1948, a trial where the verdict was decided long before it even began.
Of course, the charges were a total sham. The man who had risked everything to expose the truth of Auschwitz was now branded an enemy of the state. He was executed with a shot to the back of the head in Warsaw's Mokotów prison, a hero of Poland, murdered by his own countrymen.
So it begs the question, right? How could a hero of this magnitude just vanish from the history books? That brings us to our final section, his unearthed legacy.
Well, for nearly 50 years, for the entire Cold War, his story was basically a state secret. The communist government couldn't allow a hero who fought both the Nazis and them to exist. His name was forbidden. His reports were buried. It's like he never existed.
But then, after communism finally fell in 1989, his story started to come out. And this quote from the chief rabbi of Poland, it just captures how revered he is today. He's seen as the ultimate embodiment of courage and moral clarity.
And this is a perfect illustration of his return to the national consciousness. Today, monuments like this one in Warsaw honor him, but there's a final, lingering injustice. The communist authorities buried him in an unmarked grave, and to this day, his body has never been found.
You know, Pilecki's story was almost lost forever, deliberately suppressed by a regime that was terrified of his truth. It's a stark reminder that history isn't always set in stone, and it really makes you wonder, what other stories, what other heroes have been deliberately erased and are just waiting for their moment to be unearthed?